Hello, I'm Mark McLaughlin, and today I'll be reading to you from my story collection, House of the Ocelot and More Lovecraftian Nightmares, available on Amazon.com. And the story I'll be reading to you this morning is Uncle Caesar. Uncle Caesar stayed with us for 1 month, back when Dad was off work and really sick. I was 9 at the time. The first thing you noticed about Uncle Caesar was his wide, full-lipped mouth. A woman's mouth. The rest of his face was extremely male. Wide jaw, perpetual stubble, thick red eyebrows, and heavy cheekbones. His eyes were dark blue, and his wavy hair was reddish blonde. Uncle Caesar wasn't related to us. Mom made that clear on the day he arrived. She whisked me into the sewing room and said, "The man in the living room will be staying with us for the next few weeks, so be very, very nice to him. Call him Uncle Caesar, okay? Can you do that for me, Sporto?" "Was he a doctor?" "Well, Dad's heart problems were so bad they made Mom cry." "He's your father's mentor, dear, a special teacher." She gave me a big smile. "We're very lucky to have him here." All of Uncle Caesar's clothes were black and white. He wore a gold stick pin in his lapel, and the top of the stick pin was a gleaming rat's head with a red gem clutched in the teeth. He once said to me, "See that red stone? That's Mr. Death's heart." He came after me, and my rat, bit his heart out. I have 2 rats, actually, but I don't show folks the other one. "Oh, well, I wouldn't mess with Mr. Death," I told him. "He's a monster, and monsters always win. I've seen enough scary movies to know that." Uncle Caesar just laughed. "Yeah, I suppose you're right. I imagine he will beat me eventually, but not for some time, I think." Well, Uncle Caesar and Dad would spend hours chatting in the living room. I often watched them from the shadows under the stairs in the hall. Uncle did most of the talking, but I never could make out what he was saying. I do remember that Uncle would stare at Dad with wide open eyes as he talked, and Dad would nod like a good boy. At meal times, Uncle Caesar ate like crazy and always said, "Num, num, num." And that made Mom laugh, but I wanted to tell him, "Yum," not num. But I didn't because I was supposed to be nice. Sometimes at night I'd hear funny noises in my parents' bedroom. Then I'd look in the guest room. Empty. As a child, I couldn't imagine what was going on in that noisy room. All I know was this. Dad always looked happier and healthier after one of those noisy nights. "That stick pin sure is pretty," I said to Uncle after dinner one evening. Mom and Dad were in the kitchen doing dishes. Mom would wash and Dad would dry while they talked about parent stuff. "Doesn't Mr. Death want his heart back?" I said to Uncle Caesar. He just grinned with his big woman lips. "He keeps his distance, that's all that matters." "Mom says you're Dad's teacher," I said. "So what are you teaching him?" He looked toward the kitchen door, then at me. He leaned forward, staring in that funny way of his. I'm teaching him how to live." I never looked into his eyes so closely before. Those big dark blue eyes had lightning in them. Crazy lightning and swirling storm clouds. "Teaching him to live? How does that work?" I said. His eyes opened even wider. "My lessons will make him more like me. Absolutely, abundantly healthy." "Well, I've never heard of a teacher like that before," I said. "Who taught you how to do all that?" "Oh, a distant relative named Keziah," he said. "She's been cheating Death for quite some time, ever since she signed her name in the Black Book of Azathoth back in the 1600s. We had lunch just last week." Well, I didn't want to talk to Uncle Caesar anymore after that. All his staring was making me feel funny. "I'm going to go help with the dishes," I said. "Oh, before you do," he reached into his jacket pocket, "I'd like you to have one of these for future reference." He handed me a piece of stiff dark blue card, and I looked it over. It was a business card. It read, "Caesar Mason, Longevity Management," followed by a phone number that looked way too long. "Put that somewhere safe," he whispered. He squeezed my shoulder, and I found myself nodding like a good boy. Later, I put the card in my dictionary under C for Caesar. A few days later, I was playing out in the lawn on a Sunday afternoon. Dad was asleep in his bed, and Mom was reading a romance novel in her rocker on the porch. I was playing a game I had made up called Soldiers vs. Monsters with all my action figures. Uncle Caesar came out of the house and walked right up to my tiny lawn war. I'm playing soldiers versus monsters, I told him, matter-of-factly. Oh, I see. He bent forward to see what I was doing. Who's winning? At that point, something pink and white and furry fell out of his breast pocket onto the grass. It looked like a small white rat, except for the face. It looked like a miniature version of Uncle Caesar's full-lipped face. It gazed up at me with a wee smile. Uncle Caesar scooped up his pet and popped it into a jacket pocket. Then, as though nothing had happened, he repeated his question. Who's winning? Well, the monsters, I replied. The monsters always win. Dad did get better. He went back to work a week after Uncle left. He started wearing a stick pin, just like Uncle's. He started doing a lot of things just like Uncle. I didn't correct him about that numb thing. And I did my best to ignore the lightning in his eyes. Well, 7 years later, he disappeared. He just got in the car one morning and drove off, wearing black and white pajamas with the stick pin adorning the lapel. I happened to be in the kitchen looking out the window when he entered the car. Dad noticed me, smiled, and waved. I then saw something jump out of Dad's breast pocket onto the top of the dashboard. It waved to me as Dad backed up the car. All that was many years ago. I didn't inherit my dad's heart problems, but my son did, and right now he's not doing very well. It took a lot of searching, but I found my old dictionary and the card. Right now, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I do know this. The monsters always win.